Alright, I've been meaning to make this video for a while, kind of as a general topic, but I've just been so busy I haven't had the chance to, and I'll spare you the details of my personal life. With that being said, be wary of politicians who are pushing constitutional carry just to score political points with you while working behind your back to undermine your rights. Now, I say that because several states have passed or supposedly passed constitutional carry or made attempts to pass constitutional carry. And during the legislative process, there were attempts made to poison the constitutional carry bills with gun control provisions and further restrict your rights. I know that happened in Alabama. Luckily, those attempts failed, and Alabama was able to pass a mostly clean constitutional carry bill. I'm aware of that attempt being made in some other states, that tactic being used as well. Another state that comes to mind is Florida. Now, I don't know of any effort to subvert constitutional carry bills, as it's still early on from what I understand of that attempt being made in Florida to pass such legislation. But think about the bigger picture, right? Governor Ron DeSantis wants to pass constitutional carry, and if he's really, supports freedom, that's great. However, of course they're not going to care if you carry a gun without a permit when they can just come and take the guns from you whenever you want under Florida's blatantly unconstitutional red flag gun confiscation law. I would think if freedom was a priority, that would be, pretty important to repeal that law, but I haven't seen any efforts made by Ron DeSantis to do that. So just something to think about. Are they really on your side, or are they just trying to score political points while working behind your back to undermine your rights? Like I said, of course they don't care if you don't have a permission slip to carry a gun. If they don't want you carrying, they'll just come take your guns under a red flag gun confiscation order. So something to think about there. But anyway, the thing that came to my attention today to get me to hurry up and try to get this video out there is House Bill 2524 out of the state of Tennessee, and I do feel this is urgent, so forgive the shaky camera footage. I'm just trying to get this out there. Basically, House Bill 2524 and its Senate Companion Bill 2866, as originally written, would enact true constitutional carry in the state of Tennessee, which is great. It's well written, right? And if you watch Guns and Gadgets and listen to gun news, you might be thinking, wait, I thought Tennessee already had constitutional carry. Well, almost, not quite. Basically, in Tennessee, you can throw in a holstered handgun and walk down the street with no permit being required. But guess what? If you want to take your kids to the park, still going to need that permit. You want to go hiking in a state park, still going to need that permit. Have you had a DUI within the last 5 years? Well, guess what? You're just screwed out of carrying altogether. And that is insanely stupid, and I'll get into that here in just a moment. But what they've done is they've taken this good bill, and like these types of people always like to do, the people in the committee system, they have tried to ruin and sabotage a good bill by adding gun control provisions that make the problems even worse instead of fixing the problems in the almost constitutional carry bill that passed in Tennessee last year. All right, so let's take a look and see what exactly this bill does. Well, it starts off by changing the wording to say it's no longer, it's illegal to carry a firearm, and then unless you have a permit listed way on down at the bottom of the law and the exceptions to the being a criminal act, right? So now they change it to say, it's an offense to possess a firearm and be or do any of these things, and basically the usual gambit that you have, a felon, all that kind of stuff, right? Which in my opinion, that goes too far. But that's another topic for another time. But it's the usual thing. You're thinking, okay, not too bad. But then as you scroll down here, as they say, the devil is always in the details. So when you have a politician pushing constitutional carry, look at the details to see if they're really on your side, to see if it's actually a good bill. So anyway, as you scroll down here, what do you have here? Has been convicted of stalking, as prohibited by Tennessee state law, and it lists the statute. Now, that might not sound too bad to you, maybe or maybe not, but there's like 3 or 4 levels of stalking in Tennessee. 3 of them are felonies, but one of them is a misdemeanor. So you're essentially saying you want to make someone convicted of a misdemeanor, another misdemeanor, and you want to make them a prohibited person. And again, you may not think this would ever apply to you. I don't know what circumstances someone may have had in life where they got convicted for this or did it. Where they spying on their wife, trying to, catch their wife cheating on them or whatever, or, try to use something in a custody dispute. I don't know. You know, it may not ever apply to you, but this is a gun control tactic. Divide and conquer. Get groups of people and go, oh, they can't have guns. Well, now let's get another group. They can't have guns. And now they can't. To make gun owners an even smaller minority in this country. They're just chipping away. All right? Generally speaking, you should never lose your rights for a misdemeanor, even under current law for the most part, right? But I won't digress into that. But keep going. And what do you see below that? Has been convicted of the offense of driving under the influence of an intoxicant in this or any other state 2 or more times within the prior 10 years or 1 time within the prior 5 years, right? So basically, if you've gotten convicted of driving under the influence in the state of Tennessee, you can't have a gun for 5 years if this bill passes. That is absurd. And from a law enforcement perspective, let me tell you why I think it's so absurd. All right, if you get convicted of driving under the influence for a first offense, right, typically speaking, like, you'll be back on the road driving again after being convicted of driving under the influence within a year or less, with like restrictions for work that say you can only drive to and from work, that kind of thing, if it's less than a year, right? So you can be back on the road driving again, which is an element of driving under the influence, in a year. Yet somehow you lose your unrelated right to possess firearms for even longer, 5 years. To me, that's blatantly unconstitutional and definitely unreasonable. Not only does it violate the Second Amendment, but it violates the Eighth Amendment. That's cruel and unusual punishment to me. You're going to deprive somebody of their constitutionally protected and recognized right to bear arms and defend themselves that has nothing to do with driving for 5 years, longer than you are prohibiting them from driving, which was an element of driving under the influence. That makes absolutely zero sense to me, especially when you consider the fact that possessing firearms is a constitutionally protected right. Driving is recognized as a privilege by the courts and is not specifically mentioned in the Constitution. And if you want to, have that debate about driving should be a right on public roads, blah, 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 that's not the point. That's another topic, right? The point is that this is clearly a constitutional right, and they're trying to restrict it more as a punishment for something unrelated than they are a privilege. That's insane. So if you are in Tennessee, or if you do business in Tennessee, if you visit Tennessee much, I would strongly suggest writing the legislators and telling them to oppose House Bill 2524 if it's going to include any gun control provisions. There's no reason you should be prohibited from possessing a firearm because you made a mistake one time and got a DUI 3 years ago. That's insane. That is stupid. Tennessee's supposed to be a pro-gun state, and they're going to sit here and add more prohibited persons who can't buy guns or possess guns? That is absolutely insane. So again, if you live in Tennessee, do business in Tennessee, visit Tennessee much, because it says right here, in this state or any other state. So if you're visiting from, we'll say, Virginia, right? And you've had a DUI 2 years ago in Virginia and you got your valid carry permit out of Virginia, you're still screwed in Tennessee visiting here. That's insane. That's stupid. So please contact the state legislator, tell them to remove this nonsense and pass a clean, true constitutional carry bill. And if you live in Tennessee, or even if you don't, you're trying to contact these people, you can go to the Tennessee General Assembly page. Basically, you can find it pretty easy by Googling Tennessee General Assembly, right? And it should be one of the first 1 or 2 links. And then you can use the Find My Legislator link and type in your address, all that stuff. It'll point you to who your legislator is. Now, with that being said, if you don't live in Tennessee and you just do business here or visit much, because this does pertain to you, and if you spend money in this state, you should have a voice, right? You can just start searching for legislators and or just search the bill and find out what committee it's going in, and call those legislators. But I hope you guys will get active in doing this, especially those of you who live in Tennessee, because this is absurd. And I feel like it's a tactic being used in other states. I've seen where it's being used in other states, and I feel like it's something they're going to continue trying to do. So they can pass gun control with your support, thinking you're getting constitutional carry, when they're actually doing, working against you. Thanks for watching.